Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, PodcastOne.com, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
The Steve Austin Show is brought to you free today by our friends at Bet Online. It's almost March, and you know what that means, college basketball fans. Can you feel the madness? Get in the mix at betonline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of Podcast One Sportsnet.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California, tucked away in a little neighborhood, Marina Del Rey, here at the Broken Skull Studio. Man, what a weekend it was for me. Had a great time going down to Anaheim, making an appearance at the Monster Jam show, hanging out with some of the drivers and watching some of the best drivers in the world drive those dang monster trucks. Man, when you get four-wheel drive, 1,500 horsepower, a bunch of dirt, some ramps, jumps, all kinds of things for those guys to do, it is absolutely amazing. I go back to my monster truck days when I was kind of just making appearances, not doing anything on the competitive level. And those trucks are just nothing but a pure adrenaline rush. And, of course, now that technology has spun up so much, the trucks are at a much higher level than they were way back in the day. So what a pleasure to get out. It rained a little bit on us, but just a great time was had by all, and I got a chance to go out there and talk in front of the people. I got a chance to kick off the show. Got a chance to drive out a Kawasaki KRX 1000, the baddest side-by-side on the planet. Thing is built like a tank, built to last, and I rode out there and started hauling ass and blew my baseball cap off. And I stopped, did me a U-turn, picked up my cap, cut a donut, and went back up to the podium to get my interview on, and then rolled off and waved at everybody in the crowd and gave a big shout-out to the Kawasaki section. All their employees came down to see the show. So, hey, Monster Jam, it was a good thing and a good show to see. You guys did a great job putting that show on. Hey, with that being said, I got a great show for you today. My guest today is one of the OG guys from the freestyle motocross world from back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I don't mean that far back. You know, it was just into the, mid-late 90s when, Brian Deegan kind of came on the scene, him and some of his cohorts, and we'll get into some of those names here on the podcast. But going back to, when they formed the Metal Mulisha, and then Brian Deegan kind of went off and did his own thing and came out here from Nebraska in a pickup truck with two motorcycles and a credit card in his back pocket. And he didn't have much money, and he got on the racing circuit, found freestyle motocross, and this is a guy who's been very successful at every endeavor he's taken on. And it's due to a lot of hard work, but also to a lot of mental work. And this guy studies people that have been successful and studies what they do and how they do it, and then applies that to his brand-building techniques. And, he's got his son is in motocross racing. His daughter, Hailie Deegan, is on the NASCAR training circuit. She's just 18. She's got a little ways to go. We'll see if she makes it into that next level of competition. Brian's been doing the trophy truck. I guess that's what they call him. He used to do the rally cars. The guy's busy as hell. Everywhere you look, that's where they're at. They've got a very popular YouTube channel, and we'll talk about that all on the podcast. We'll talk about his humble beginnings and all the things that they're going through. It's the Deegan family, man. They are busy as hell, and he's got those kids going, and they know work, and they have a work ethic, and they're goal-driven. And so they're finding a lot of success, and that success comes with a lot of hard work and a lot of due diligence. Brian Deegan is my guest. We talk here for a little bit, so I'm going to keep this open pretty short, and let's go ahead and roll sound and get into my conversation with Brian Deegan, one of the original freestyle motocross guys, one of the original guys from the Metal Mulisha clothing brand, and now as the husband and father to his wife and the kids and all of the things that they have going. Let's get it. All right, I'm sitting here at the Broken Skull studio with Callie, my black lab, terrorizing the place. Brian Deegan just rolled in. Where do you come from, Temecula?
Yeah, from Temecula. It was a little drive, a couple hours.
Both of our labs, Callie and my silver lab Mula, is from Temecula.
Oh, really?
There's a breeder over there.
Oh, jeez.
God dang, man, that's a hairy drive.
Yeah, it was long. Traffic, I came just after traffic, so it wasn't super bad, but 2.5 hour drive. Gave me a chance to get some stuff done. So,
are you multitasking while you're behind the wheel on your Bluetooth, trying to take care of business? You got a growing enterprise. Y'all are going crazy over there at the Deegan household with all the projects and the things that you have your hands in.
Yeah, for sure. It's I always catch myself getting mad at other drivers that are on their phone, so I try not to be that guy. But man, my list is so long. So anyway, throw it on speakerphone or Bluetooth. But yeah, we have a list. I mean, it's always something, and right now it's just been so busy. If you think of with my daughter just got off the Daytona 500 week. I mean, that was probably one of the wildest times in my life. And if you think I came from a small town in Nebraska. As a young kid, chasing my dreams to California to race professional motocross when I was younger, and to think ever would I be in this position, I think back when I was in Nebraska, I was just nervous to go to California, but I was excited and wanted to make my life, make my life adventure something more than just being stuck in the Midwest. And I love the Midwest roots, but I felt like I needed more, so I moved to California and chased my motocross dreams, man. And it's had so many highs and lows, but to think, you're sitting at Daytona 500 with my daughter, who's now racing NASCAR, and one of the most sought after prospects. I'm not just saying that as a proud dad. That's what's in the paper yesterday, right? So,
hey, we were talking to Driveway about the same thing. She checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
She's a talented driver. She still has a ways to go, obviously, as someone would at that age.
Yeah.
But man, she's just, to me, she could seemingly have a high level of marketability. She's got some talent, obviously, coming down the genetics here with you and your racing background. So, and she's working her tail off trying to, bring up the experience. Before we jump into everything, let's talk about Daytona 500 a little bit, because I saw y'all on TV. There was President Trump out there with the First Lady. Jets flew over, badass. And then, god dang, rain delay.
Yeah.
So the next day they kicked it back up. And did you see the finish of the race yesterday?
Yes, I watched.
This happened last week, everybody. As y'all know, that's the way my podcast works. But we're talking about Brian's schedule and my schedule over the last few days.
Yeah, so we were there I've been down in Daytona for almost a month because Hailie signed a deal with Ford Motors and was able to race IMSA, which is the road course, 24 hours at Daytona. So they've been putting her nonstop in a car to get better because they're vested in her to make it to Cup. And so we've been down there for a month. It came time for her to race the ARCA race, which is just a level below the NASCAR trucks. She'll go to NASCAR trucks at the end of the year and move up full-time next year, but I'm trying to teach her to kind of crawl before she walks, and she went out there, finished second the first time on the Daytona track. I was a nervous dad, going almost 200 miles per hour. No matter what, that's still your little girl on the track, and the guys are roughing her up, and no one wants to cut her any slack, and it's nerve-wracking. And then this kind of plays out into the 500 as how dangerous it can be, and Hailie made great decisions, never put herself in a bad situation, ended up coming across the line in second place, which is the highest of a female finishing.
For top five.
Yeah, top five.
Two, yeah.
Top five was our goal for her first ARCA race, and she got second, which is the highest finishing girl, tied the highest finishing girl at Daytona. And but it goes into the week of the 500, which we've gone since she was 13 years old. We've been at the 500 just as fans, just watching, working with sponsors. Like Monster always brought us down to do signings and other things, but we were there and watching the race with the Cup drivers coming in, and then we heard that Trump was coming, and whether you're on Trump's side or not, this is the president.
Hey, President of the United States, brother.
Yeah, so to get any chance, I didn't care. At the end of the day, you get to meet the president. That's a big deal. And so they're telling Hailie, hey, there's a chance you could meet meet the president as he comes in. And I said, I ain't missing that. So I was standing right by her side. And so they brought a handful of Cup drivers. They cut out a lot of people, a lot of higher-ups that didn't get to go. And they brought us to the back of the building and when Trump arrived. And I was right there with Hailie. And, man, what a cool moment, man. Like pulling up in you know, the armored cars, and we filmed the Air Force One flying in, and I mean there was thousands of people lining the streets that weren't even in the race. They heard he was flying in. Yeah. Thousands of locals like cheering as he flew in, and I just saying the vibe was awesome. He showed up. Walked around and shook everyone's hand. Actually stopped and talked to Hailie and I for a while about, racing and is she scared to race that car? And as a dad, am I nervous? And just a cool conversation. And, of course, I was filming it kind of from the hip. Got him, I got him. And then we took pictures and Hailie had him sign her helmet, which was pretty cool.
That was badass. I saw it on Instagram.
So, and that turned out to be a kind of a cool social play because Hailie had tagged Donald Trump Jr. during the day, said, hey, I really would like my helmet to get signed if there was a possibility. And he saw it, retweeted it, and said, hey, I know someone, I think I can pull this off. And he actually did get it pulled off. They had to search, they had to inspect the helmet and look at it, of course, and all this, but it all worked out. And I was like, man, what a cool moment,
That's interesting. I got a chance to do business with Donald Trump way back in the day. Mm-hmm. I was refereeing the match. It was billionaire versus billionaire. Trump's team versus Vince McMahon's team, and the loser had to get his head shaved. So obviously, coming from the background of pro wrestling, most likely our future president at that time was not going to get his head shaved. But right before we went out there, Vince comes up to me. He goes, hey, Steve, I want to bring you over here and meet Donald Trump. I said, all right. And he goes, hey, I'm going to see if he'll take a Stone Cold Stunner at the end of when everything's finished. And a Stone Cold Stunner was my finish. Mm-hmm. And I said, man, I said, you sure? He goes, you think you can get him to do it? He goes, oh, yeah, I can get him to do it. And we go over, he introduces me, and he goes, hey, Donald, I just think at the end, if Steve hits you with his finish, Stone Cold Stunner, that'd be great. And President Trump asks, well, what is it and how does it work? And so he tells him, and Donald's right-hand guy goes, oh, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. They're lucky to have you here. And Donald looked over at Vince. He goes, you think it'd help? He goes, oh, God dang, Donald, of course it'd be great. And no rehearsal, nothing. Dude went out there and did it. So,
really?
Hey, I got to give a shout-out, man. That dude's game.
Yeah.
So it was cool seeing you. But let's talk about that race because it was a crazy race. Started off, Daytona 500, Mac Daddy, right? Mm-hmm. And then the second day, God dang, man, there was wrecks all over the place.
Yeah.
And then, man, going to that last one, a couple of restarts. And you might know more about this with your race experience now that you're doing with trophy trucks.
Yeah.
All that stuff. Well, dude, what happened? Because Ryan Newman, man, cut over, hit the wall, airlifted him, and then the dude clipped him from behind. He's going 200.
Yeah.
What'd you make out of that whole situation? And right now as we speak, I haven't heard anything other than the fact that he's in stable condition and good condition. It's not life-threatening, but that doesn't tell you a whole lot.
No.
There's leaving a lot to speculate on, so I won't.
Yeah.
But, man, that was a hairy scene.
Yeah.
And then Denny Hamlin wins for the second time in a row, third overall. A hell of a thing for him.
Yeah.
Give me your take on how the back end of that race and the finish went down.
Yeah, when you're racing the track at Daytona, it's all about the drafting, and you have to be at the right place at the right time. And the two cars are faster than one. You'll see one get out there, and then the two will catch them and run them down. So the goal is not to be way out by yourself at the finish. And, four cars are faster than two. This is all things we're learning as Hailie raced. But you get in that pack racing, and they're going so fast, you don't have much time to move around. And when the leader gets out there and the guys behind him get a run, and the leader tries to block, there's not much you can do. You're going over them like a freight train, And that's kind of the way it went down. I thought Danny Hamlin had it. He kind of got out there too early. And Jeff Gordon, even though we're all saying, hey, I think he's out there too early.
He tipped his hand.
Yeah, and he was smart enough. I told my daughter Hailie, I said, study Hamlin. He's so smart. He never blocks at the wrong time. And he didn't block as the leaders are coming, and knowing he could lose that race, filed back in with the number 12 and pushed him, Blaney, and then they got a run. They were coming. So he would set up just perfect, one lap to go. And then Newman went to block, that's what you do when you're trying to win the race. And he ended up getting spun or turned into the wall at 200 miles per hour. hits the wall and going sideways like that, the cars get airborne, right? They're not meant to go sideways at that speed, and the car goes upside down. Worst case scenario, number 32, I think it was, goes up behind, hits him in the driver door at 200. And man, you see the car cave in, goes flipping, slides to a stop, and there was fuel pouring out of the back of the car. It was on fire. I'm just like, oh no, man, this is going to get really bad.
Look in the mirror. You look good. You're doing everything right for your health today, but if you're not planning for the what-ifs of tomorrow, then it's time you do. The problem is, historically and rather ironically, the health conscious have overpaid and subsidized those who are less health conscious. It's not a conspiracy. It's just how life insurance works. Introducing Health IQ. Health IQ uses science and data to secure lower rates for people like you on their life insurance. If you're a runner or a cyclist, or if you're into CrossFit or another type of athlete, even a committed weekend warrior. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, then you deserve to be rewarded for your hard work with more affordable life insurance rates. Health IQ can save you up to 41% because physically active people have significantly lower risk for heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. And Health IQ is not just a lead generator. They take the customer through the entire process of applying, and the policy is underwritten by one of our top insurance partners. But these savings are exclusive to Health IQ. You won't find them anywhere else, and you must qualify to get a special rate. To see if you qualify, go to healthiq.com/Steve to take the proprietary Health IQ quiz. Depending upon your score, as well as other related qualifying factors, you can save up to 41% on your life insurance premiums compared to other providers. Again, that's healthiq.com/Steve to let them know we sent you. And start the process with Health IQ quiz. There's no commitment, and you'll learn even more about potential opportunities to be rewarded for your commitment to living healthy. One more time, that's healthiq.com/Steve.
Scary moment, right? And you think in NASCAR, these guys are crashing. You know, the whole race, they're running into each other, they're spinning out and all this, and everything seems to be okay. But you have to understand, it's a dangerous sport. And that's what made me kind of look at it and go, man, it's just a reality check right there. I thought, okay, I can't wait till my daughter gets there. I'm excited. And that was like, whoa, what are we doing? I go, is this really worth it? And then as a father, I look at that. I'm like, man, you always put your kid in that situation. And you're like, he starts making you think. And I think NASCAR will look at this and study it and pick it apart and try to see how they can make it safer. You know, I'm glad to hear that Ryan, it wasn't worse. It wasn't what we thought it was.
Right.
I'll just be honest, like everyone thought it was way worse than, when the news came out and said it's not life-threatening, that was a big sigh of release for everyone. I think that's what everyone was thinking about. I know it was cool that Hamlin won. And I know he didn't know it was that serious. Right. They were celebrating, and then they heard. I could tell everyone was super, it's a change of emotions because racing's cool, but it's, obviously, someone's life on the line is so much more important at that, and then that all happened so quick. And then Newman went to the hospital. No one knew, until the statement came out, and it's still pretty vague. So I'm, still don't really know how bad the injuries are.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But explain to me, man, because I'm assuming during your early motocross days, before you really got into the freestyle stuff, and now with the trophy truck, and before that, the rally cars?
Yeah, rallycross, yeah.
Hey, man, rallycross, man, that drafting, because when Hamlin had the lead and two guys took over, Hamlin's back here, and the way it all set up, you could hear Joy, the announcer.
Yeah, Gordon,
Kevin Gordon.
Yeah.
He said, hey, man, when he fell back, he goes, no, this race ain't over yet, because he saw what he's fixing to do.
Yeah.
And then he pushed. He went to the wall. He drove right by.
Yeah.
Man, that drafting stuff is unreal to me because I ain't never raced nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've driven fast on the streets, but I
Yeah.
ain't never raced nobody.
Yeah.
That drafting, the side drafting, that thing, that is a real science, and I guess there's an art to it.
There is, yeah. And there's no coincidence that Hamlin wins. He's got it figured out, and I think he knows when to take the chances, it seems like. He knows when to hold back. He knows when not to block because he's going to get run over. The best way I can explain it is it's like you're on the freeway and you're going in the fast lane and there's a car slower and you move over to the right lane to pass and then all of a sudden there's a slow car there and you're like, well, there's a car behind you pushing you and you're not stopping. You're going right through them, and that's kind of the way it plays out on those long tracks is you're lose control when you're in a pack and someone's pushing you. Like you'll see that when like Logano did that to another guy, was pushing, and he couldn't. He's just like, I can't stop, and then he hit the guy ahead of him, big crash. You're just hoping the guys behind you are driving you with respect and trying to treat you the same. But when it gets to the end of the race, all that goes out the window, It's all every man for himself. Everyone wants to win. Like I thought, like Blaney would come down and help Newman, the two Fords, and take off. But then it kind of played out the other way with Hamlin pushing Blaney and hitting Newman. And I don't know. Like I said, I wasn't in that race, and it all happened so fast. But man, it definitely was a crazy finish. And like I said, it definitely sucks to see a crash that bad. Like that was scary for sure.
Hey, man, so what are the steps for your daughter, Hailie, to get into the sport? Because I know a lot of those guys, I mean, man, a lot of them are just based out of North Carolina because that's kind of like, home, or Charlotte, Mooresville, whatever you want to call it. But there's people from out here and everywhere that do it. But it just seems like everybody starts with go-karts, this, that, or whatever. What has been your daughter's experience, and how did she start? Because you're straight up motocross, freestyle stuff, and now doing what you're doing. How did she get into, like, hey, NASCAR is what I want to do, this, and how's she paying her dues, or how's she getting her learning in to be where she's at now?
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of people have asked, like, what is the route you guys have taken? Because it seems to be working more than, like, I'm always into studying who is the best? How have they got there? And that's how I figured out from riding dirt bikes. I had went to Supercross and, was able to win a Supercross at LA Coliseum where I ghost rode my bike. I went to X Games, won multiple X Games, created the sport of freestyle. And I always was into studying who's the best. And then I went to car racing because I just got sick of getting hurt. And I had a sponsor that put me in a race car, and I just studied the best. I said, who's winning? And I just studied tape and video and how do they corner? How do they turn? And so we apply that at time, but it's hard too because it's very hard for us to base also a female driver that has gone to the top of the sport and has dominated or won or be competitive to win. So that story still is left to be told, right? Like we still can't go, okay. And I know everyone refers to Danica, and she did make it very far. She was a great driver, has made it further than any other girl in the sport. But at this point, I feel like the next girl coming in that's going to have to earn the respect of the drivers is going to have to be competitive to win races almost every time she gets on the track, as the other drivers in the top group are. And I think that's the level we're shooting for, which is obviously going to be very hard. But to get there, Hailie had come through the mod kart program at the Lucas Oil Series. She has a dirt background, which I think that's something super important. The best drivers, a lot of the best drivers, such as the Tony Stewarts, the Gordons, all had some dirt experience in their tool bag. So Hailie comes from dirt. When she's sideways on the track, I'm nervous, but I always like, you didn't remember that? You're sideways on the turn or someone pushed you. He's like, no, because it just comes natural to her because she came from the dirt. So I think that's her advantage. So I try to keep her in the dirt, try to keep her in trucks, but right now she's so heavily vested into go-karting has really helped too, just being in a go-kart. Even though it sounds like not much, it's super important. And we got a garage at GoPro Motorplex in Charlotte. Charlotte's the hub for NASCAR, okay? Yeah. If you're going to make it in motocross, you live in Southern California. If you're going to make it in NASCAR, you got to be in Charlotte. And unfortunately, that's been a kind of a tear on our life and family because, I like California. That's where I like to ride dirt bikes. But we're ending up in Charlotte a lot more. And they have a place called GoPro Motorplex where a lot of the pros go and practice in the karts. And I think that has been a big part for Hailie too. And I'm really surprised. I thought you'd see a lot more pro drivers out there. I think a lot of guys get up these ranks. Either they are secure on money or they, feel like they already made it and they kind of are slacking on the practice days, which is fine with us because we're taking those practice days. We're putting in the motocross mentality into car racing, which is work every day. Like my daughter every day goes to the gym. Every day she's studying tape. She's at the simulator. All the things that I think it's going to take for her to be competitive. But, like I said, her background has been off-road, go-karting. She's done a lot of stuff in the UTVs just because it's affordable and it's easy. We have a track at our house, so we're always driving. She's always in something practicing. That's really the goal.
I saw one of those cats out there. Dude was 20 years old. Don't remember his name. There's another guy's 22. Hailie's 18. Going on. When's she going to be 19?
She just turned, so July, yeah.
So she's young 18.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, if speculation, it's just everything kind of went according to. I've heard people talk about you in interviews and say you're the master planner, but are you kind of riding the edge of a lightning bolt here because, you know, maybe you don't want to throw her into the fire too fast and get some seasoning and some learnings before she gets, you know, out there with the wolves.
Yeah.
So what is the long-range plan there to getting her, you know, in that car?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, you know, it's like when we met the president. He's like, "Oh, you're in the race today?" Like people assume she's already in Cup or there. She's got to go through ARCA, which is going to put her on all the big tracks she's going to race when she goes to Cup. So that's where we're at now. That's below the Truck Series. The NASCAR Truck Series is kind of when you've made it to the big three, and she's going to do that for 2 years, and then 2 years of Xfinity. So that will put her 5 years of training before she gets to Cup. If she goes on that training program and doesn't get rushed, I think she'll be a threat when she gets to Cup. You know, and life happens, right? She's a pretty girl. You know, life happens, so there's going to be other distractions just besides trying to make it in racing. I always think, why has no girl made it yet? Like, why has no girl or multiple girls made it in the sport? Because the car is the equalizer, right? Like, it's not like you're playing football and there's a girl against a guy.
You don't have to be bigger, stronger, or faster.
No. In the end, yes, it does help when you're out on the track for, you know, a couple hundred laps and it's hot out and you're in a race car. You know, if you have two people of equal talent, the guy who's in better shape is going to win, right? That's just the theory. So that's why she's always fighting to be in shape. But, you know, the point is it's a long road. She's got to sustain for 4 or 5 more years before she gets the Cup. And what that means, we race off sponsor money, too. It's not like, oh, I made $1 billion doing X Games, and I just take it from the piggy bank. Some parents have that, though. Like, unfortunately, NASCAR, a majority of the NASCAR drivers have, you know, very wealthy families. You know, they're paying for those cars and those rides, which is no secret. And I think a lot of the talents that came up on just straight talent getting paid to race, those are pretty rare nowadays, just because that's the landscape. So, you know, you have a lot of drivers out there that have, you know, the families are able to afford to keep going and keep going. For us, we run off sponsor money. And so Hailie has to be marketable. She has to do her social media. She has to play all the game to be in the spotlight and perform. So with that, I think she's got enough to find the sponsorship and the people to back her to make it all the way. But when you have a sponsor that goes, how much is it? It's a couple million to do ARCA? Okay, why wouldn't we just spend that and you can go to Trucks or Xfinity or Cup? And you're like, you don't understand. We have to learn. We have to still go through the, you know, like it's like, I don't know how you put it into sports, like ball sports, but you still have to go through the amateurs, you know?
Yeah, it's building blocks. It's fundamentals. It's the process. It's the grind, and it's experience and the seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you got a chance to talk to Dale Earnhardt Jr. on your podcast, correct? Now, I went down and did my show on the USA Network with him. That guy is a blast. Yeah. Very candid and very cool for a guy of his level of success.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, he builds his cars for the Xfinity Series, correct?
Yes. So his Junior Motorsports is mainly focused on Xfinity Series. Yeah.
He wants to give back.
Yeah. So he is big part of NASCAR still to this day, even though he's not racing, is that he's got drivers involved. He's got it's so cool to see him stay involved with NASCAR in the way he does, and I think the fan base is really appreciative of that. You know, I don't know what the sport would be without him, I think he is a big part of it, and I have a lot of respect for him because when you talk to him, he is genuinely a humble dude. Like, when I talk to him, I don't think he knows his level. Is what I feel when you talk to him.
Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah.
I just think at his core, that's who he is. He just happens to be a guy that was very, very successful and never let his head blow up.
Yeah.
I think keeps it all in perspective. But he's very, very smart. He's one of the best storytellers I've ever heard.
Yeah.
A lot of those NASCAR guys are, though, just because, they've been around so many things. Hey, you yourself. Yeah. Hey, but let's talk about you for a second and get off a little bit of the NASCAR stuff. Tell me about this podcast because, man, you were supposed to come by a week or two ago, and your schedule with everything that you guys have going on is super busy. So today we was able to hook up.
Yeah.
So with a highly successful YouTube channel, what's it called, the Deegan family?
Yep.
Okay, on YouTube, I don't know how many subscribers y'all got, but it's a bunch.
Yeah, it's good. It's called The Deegans. It was Deegan38, and then we just changed it to The Deegans because I'm like, it's really just about our family. And Deegan38 was the brand I've always tried to build. And I just say, you know what? It's just The Deegans, really. It's just our family being us, So, but, we've been, we've been doing it for over a year and a half now, maybe 2 years. But we have great viewership on it.
I thought you guys have been doing it way longer than that.
I know. We've had
great success.
Yeah, only a year. Yeah. Probably I just remember in October, it was October almost 2 years ago. And so I was like, my buddy showed me it online. He's like, hey, you should start doing YouTube. You guys film. You put all these videos up on Instagram and Facebook. Why don't you do it on YouTube? I'm like, well, I don't know. Show me what it is. And so we started messing with it. And so I put some videos up, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. And then all of a sudden it started hitting it, and it started getting views. And then I'm like, man, this turned into a cool little network, like we were kind of controlling our own destiny. And we've had, like I said, a lot of offers to do reality shows. And there was a time when I was younger, I did X Games, and I was trying really hard to get a show on MTV. And, and my daughter was real young, and my wife and I were like, oh, we were punk rock dirt bikers, we wanted to be on TV when we were rebel dudes, and we wanted to go and have a TV show on that, on the Militia and all the guys we had back in the day doing freestyle motocross. I just thought it would be a hit. And we never got that done. And so I felt like once my family grew and I started focusing on family, then I realized, hey, man, I'm family first. And we really could tell our own story through YouTube.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Does your lawn suck? Are you spending hours trying to make your grass look thicker and healthier with no results? Look no further than Scott's. Scott's Turf Builder Thicker Lawn has everything you need to turn your lawn into the thick green paradise that you deserve. With this 3-in-1 solution, you can get up to a 50% thicker lawn with just one application. With Scott's Turf Builder Thicker Lawn, you can finally get the thickest, greenest lawn you've always dreamt of. Host your backyard parties with pride this summer. Scott's Turf Builder Thicker Lawn 3-in-1 solution consists of seeds to fill in gaps, soil improver for enhanced root development, and fertilizer to feed new grass and thicken and green the existing stuff. Also, Scott's no quibble money-back guarantee states, if you're not satisfied, you get your money back. Simple as that. Get thicker, quicker. This is a Scott's Yard.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Well, have you enjoyed the podcast since you started it?
The podcast, I have to admit, I've had a lot of people hit me up over the years going, you need to do a podcast. You like to talk. You have a lot of stories. You're always doing something that's interesting with your kids. And I'm like, what? I just don't have the time, man. There comes a point when I study successful people. That's one thing I've done over the last so many years, and I didn't really think I'd find myself doing that. But the main thing I do, I use podcasts to get educated and be smarter on everything I want to learn. I like subjects on marketing, on business. I study successful people, and I could go down the list of shows, and I'm sure they're all the most popular ones you listen to too. But at the end of the day, you want to learn from that, and I feel like that was something that I'm like, man, if I do a podcast, I kind of want it to be educational. I want to, help spread a message of how to be a better parent, how to have a better relationship. I'm not saying I'm the master of it, but I'm saying I've figured it out for my family, and how to raise kids to be winners or to want to be winners, So many lists trying to check these boxes. And then I just said, man, do I really have the time to do this? Because when you spread yourself thin, you kind of not good at everything, right? You can be good at a few things. And when I, back in the day, I focused on the Metal Mulisha brand. We were in X Games. All I had to do was ride my dirt bike, take big risks, and break bones, and come back and do it again. And then I had Metal Mulisha, and we pumped that, and we sold clothing, and it blew up, and we were everywhere. And I'm like, that was a success story because it was focused. And then I went to my kids and focused on family. And then I'm like, man, I have a lot of people don't know, but I have like my own tire line, Deegan 38 Tires, Mickey Thompson. I have truck parts with extreme terrain, and I could go down a list of tons of products, and unfortunately, I'm not there to promote them all. Like I do my best, but for me, I turn down a lot of things. There's so many things that come across our plate that we say no to because I just don't have the time to put effort into it. But the podcast, that was one of those things I said, no. And finally I said, you know what? There's a point when my kids could leave, right? They could move on, and they could be be sitting home with my wife and going, what business would I have going then, And I thought, you know what, it'd be great to have a podcast built up and tell these stories and continue to tell stories and spread a message of positivity and try to motivate people, and which is so different than who I was 10, 20 years ago. But I felt like I turned into this guy through parenting and life experiences. I was a negative dude for a long time, and I try to look back. I did a documentary called Bloodline. The guys who did the Monster Energy Unchained movie did this documentary on me, and I thought, okay, let's do a documentary. And it went back on all the hard times. I grew up in a broken family. My mom left when I was 12 and never really saw her again. My dad raised me. He was not the best parent on love and affection. He was a business guy, which is probably where I got my business side. So he raised me, and this is what tells in the documentary. And I just raised to be a hard worker, but I wasn't raised with love. I wasn't raised with that affection. So when I got into a relationship, that was a big problem. That was a big problem with it. And it took me many years. And I had a lot of anger. I was mad. I was always mad for some reason. And I think it had a lot to do with my mom and just my life that I had when I was younger. Once my mom left, I just really was an angry kid. And I look back on it, I can kind of put my finger on it. And it took many years for me to find my wife and her family, who was really a super loving Christian family that was like forgiving, and every time I'd be mean and bad, they'd always be nice and forgive me, and I was like, man, there was just an attraction to that, and eventually it changed me, it broke me. And then I felt like, okay, I'm on a mission now to help the dudes that I was just on a dead end road, even though people looked at me and thought, oh, this guy's got everything. He's partying, he's got money, he's got, everything going for him. And I was like, really, I was just a mad dude. I was pissed off, So that was kind of a cool, changing in my life for sure.
But on your podcast, is every single one guest-oriented, or is it sometimes you talking with your family, or are you just talking about family and life lessons, you just with a stick?
Yeah, so that's a good point of the podcast started, and it was just going to be about my family. It was just going to be like every episode was going to be, okay, I went to the motocross track this weekend with Haiden. Let's talk to Haiden. I went to the NASCAR with, hey, let's talk to Hailie. Then I thought, you know what? Is it people really want to hear that all the time? And I thought, I don't think that's really going to be the best thing. We already do that on YouTube. And I said, you know what? Let me just bring guests on and let's just shoot the shit for it's sort of shorter term, but let's just talk and let's have conversation. And my first guest was Travis Pastrana. And what was pretty cool, when I reached out to people, they all said yes. I thought that wouldn't happen. You kind of opens your eyes, right? You're like, people are been pretty open, and Travis and I were mortal enemies when we competed, and then we became friends. And I've known Travis for 2 decades, and I've never sat down and had an hour conversation with him. And so that podcast allowed me to do that, and then we built more of a bond, and I felt like, man, I'm onto something here. I'm like, oh, this is helping me build better relationships with people on a more real level, and I think that's where the podcast went. And I said, okay, now I'm going to have Dale Jr. on, and I'm going to have the list goes on with people, and I got pretty excited about it. But yes, it's a grind, dude.
But with your timeline, going to talk to a guy like a Dale Jr. And Travis Pastrana, which you have a lot of shared history with, so you can basically shoot the breeze and talk stories or shop.
Yeah,
and talk with a guy from Dale Jr. A little bit different wheelhouse, kind of in the same family. What's your prep for that?
My prep for that, like my dad has always told me, when you're going to go and meet with someone, do your homework, okay? Don't just show up and expect, it's going to go right. You got to give the guest or whoever you're spending time with the respect of you took the time to really learn who they are, at least the key points. So Dale Jr., I was nervous. I was like, dude, I'm going to do a podcast with Dale Jr. I'm not a podcaster. And so I went on, and he was just such a good talker, and it flowed. And we got into dirt bike stories I don't think anyone's ever heard before, because I don't think people ever ask him about dirt bikes. Him and his dad working on a dirt bike, and just some cool stuff that instead of just asking the same generic questions. That's what I try not to do. I try to get in deeper to, like, hey, things that they wouldn't ever talk about, bring out the stories that people have never heard. And that's what happened with Dale Jr. for sure. It was a hit. I didn't really, either way, hit or not, I just felt like, man, that was cool to get to talk with Dale Jr. for that long. Hailie jumped on. They built a little relationship there, so it was pretty cool.
Now, how long do you like your podcast to be? You go in there just open-ended, or do you have a timeline? You just send a producer, hey, bring us down to what?
Yeah, so, working with, and then the reason why I jumped into the podcast thing was when, I got the agreement with PodcastOne, I went and had a meeting with them first, and, I was in Hollywood or LA, and I sit down and they said, this is your team. And it was a whole room of people, and I said, okay, this looks professional. Like, this isn't just me winging it on my phone, and I said, okay, this is going to hold me to a level of excellence. This is going to hold me to a high level that's just going to have to be good. And so that excited me. It's going to be a challenge. And I said, okay, let's do it. So that they said, hey, let's kind of give it your parameters. You kind of want to stick to about an hour. Let's start there. And we're going to do one episode a week. What day do you want? I said, well, Wednesdays is kind of the day I find myself at home. I'm not, going crazy. Weekends, no way. And so I try to go on a Wednesday that I have not much going on. I'll sit down and try to bust out a few episodes. And like the last few weeks I've been so busy I haven't had a chance to do anything. And they'll call me and be like, hey, you have to read this, you have to read an ad, or you have to read. I'm like, dude, I'm like in the middle of talking to Trump right now. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's just but I've committed to it and I have fun with it, so I think it's pretty cool.
Best thing you can do is make sure you have fun with it. And then with your YouTube channel and all of the places that you're at, man, you can always bank in a few Q&A type episodes as go-to things, or if you can build up a little bit of a bank, which I'm notoriously terrible at. Anyone who's ever produced my podcast, sometimes, man, they'll say, hey, man, what you got on the podcast this week? And it'll be like, the podcast due in 2 days. I'm like... I don't know. I ain't thought about it yet. But see, that's just the way I live my life. Yeah. So far, 6 years later, it's worked out for me. Yeah. And I apologize to every producer I've ever had when I really dropped a hot potato on them and a real last minute notice. Yeah. But hey, man, it's a trip. Going back to your days, I've been wrestling so long, and I've talked to so many people, and like you said, I've answered so many of the questions so many times. So I know that when you was in Nebraska and you just decided, hey, man, I want to go to Cali. So you take off in a pickup truck, a couple bikes, motorcycles, a credit card, you're gone. Okay, you come to SoCal. My question is, did you just have the gift of gab or this charisma? Because I don't expect you just staying at a Motel 6, or are you credit carding it? My thoughts were, where did you stay when you came to Cali, the land that you needed to be in to succeed in motorcycle racing? Yeah,
so I ended up in Southern California. San Bernardino was kind of the hotbed for motocross at the time. That was kind of in the late 90s. I would say that's kind of where the motocross scene was before it moved south to Temecula, or it started in San Diego in the 80s, and kind of San Bernardino was a spot. So I ended up there, and I ended up meeting a friend at the Amateur Nationals. There's a Nationals called Loretta Lynn's in Ponca City. They're where you go as a kid. And I met these kids from California, and I built a relationship with them. I had a plan. I said, hey, man, I would like to come. They said, come out to our house and stay in the winter, because it snows in California or in Nebraska. During the winter is really bad, too cold to ride. They said, come to Cali in the winter. So I got a ride. Like I said, I drove out there and ended up staying at a friend's house. Basically rented a room. It was a couple $100 a month. The credit card was for emergencies. I raced professional at the time. I was a privateer. So I made, I'd make $500 a race, $1,000 a race, enough to I was $2 or $3, $4 grand a month to pay my bills and, my gas and my car payment. So I survived through racing, but it was very, very humble beginnings. I was sleeping on floors. I was eating peanut butter and jelly,
You're paying the dues.
Paying the dues.
It reminds me a lot of anything, or back to my roots in pro wrestling when I was starving and people at the little shitbox hotel I was staying at in Nashville and Dickerson Pike, which is the wrong side of town, let me pay my bills whenever I had the money. Yeah. So you're doing that, and you're coming up. And you were never a factory rider, so you're basically independent. So, I mean, that's really busting your hump. You're just trying to, stay competitive with the other dudes that got money.
Yeah.
And we're going almost segueing back to what Hailie's doing now, trying to get in the NASCAR scene.
Oh, yeah. And I exactly, because I had to learn how to survive off sponsor money, kind of the same as what Hailie's doing, but a whole different level. But yeah, I had to be social. I had to go introduce myself. I had to shake hands. I had to say hello. I had to try to build relationships with people so I could stay around. I didn't want to go back to Nebraska, man. It was like when you kind of have when you have a ship and you land and you basically burn the ship because you're like, I'm never going back. That's kind of what I did. I was like, I'm never going back. I have to make it work. So I ended up meeting good people and ended up just doing good enough racing. I was a 5th to 10th place guy, and so you think now 5th to 10th place guy, you're looking at. I had national number 25 was my lowest number. I mean, that's Marvin Muskin, like guys that are good right now, right? So you look at the landscape has changed. The top 20 right now have factory rides. The top 20, each team has 4 or 5 guys like Geico, Honda, you have Star Yamaha. I would have been on one of those teams if that was the case, but they had one factory rider from each factory back when I raced. Wow. It was like John Dowd or Kevin Windham, and I was a 5th place guy. Like I said, I ended up winning that race that night on a bike I bought at a local shop for $4 grand. That would never happen today. And so, but, I basically made it in the sport long enough to survive, but I kind of saw a point where I'm like, I'm not going to be able to retire off this. Like, what am I going to do? Those thoughts were crossing my mind. And that's kind of when freestyle motocross guys started filming with camcorders and filming guys doing tricks on dirt bikes, play riding. That was kind of the McGrath era where, guys were out hitting jumps out in the hills. And that's kind of what I started doing. I fell in living with Mike Metzger, who was a big freestyle motocross guy back in the day. He was the pioneer. Like, if you ever think of a guy, he doesn't get enough credit because he kind of fell out of the limelight, but he is a guy who created freestyle motocross. He was a BMX guy. He started doing double cans and knack-knacks, bar hops, and all these things on a dirt bike, and people were tripping out. The factory motocross didn't want nothing to do with it. They were like, no, keep that away, even though motocross sales were starting to rise. And that's when we were able to figure out how to do the Crusty Demons of Dirt videos and Moto Triple X. All those videos came out, and it just blew up. And I was like, you know what? I'm over here breaking bones, kicking my butt, trying to make it in motocross, barely eating. And then I went to freestyle motocross, and I got my first sponsor, Etnies. I got $500 check every month. That was a big deal. And then I went to X Games in '99. I met the let's just say X Games '99. We show up, we crank up our dirt bikes. There's big 100-foot doubles jumps, on the bay there, and there's huge crowds. Like, I'm nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never been around the crowds like this. And we crack up our dirt bikes and start revving them and jumping, and the whole crowd comes running to our event. They would run from the skate ramps, from the BMX, and they run to our event. And it was crazy. The energy, the vibe, everyone was going nuts. Like, they've never seen this before. That's when Pastrana launched his bike into the bay. And I mean, it was rebel fashion. Like, we were owning it. And that's when I sat there and was like, man, we're on to something right here. I was like, we're on a movement right now. Like, we're building action sports. We're building freestyle motocross, and that's when I met Mark Hall, who ran ran Hanson's Energy, and before it was Monster. And he's like, hey, would you like to do a sponsorship? And I was kind of like anti-corporate guy because I couldn't get sponsors anyway, so I made it kind of anti-corporate. But we talked at San Francisco. He's like, I'd like to sponsor you for Hanson's Energy, and I'm like, man, I don't know. That's like an energy bike. And he's like, I'll give you $2,500 a month. And I was like, what? I was like, dude, I hit it. I hit the big time. And
I
hit the mother load. And then we were partying. Then it was on. So anyway, that's kind of how it all started.
Hey, man, describe your personality back in the younger days. Because, man, you kind of had the buzz haircut. And, like, you did an interview, I think it was before, 98. I guess it might have been the next game.
Yeah.
And it was, riding Mulisha.
Yeah.
And it was something about, hey, man, I just hope maybe I'll fly off this bike and decapitate a few people in a crowd. And a whole different guy from what I'm across from now, the complete family guy who's got, your son, Haiden.
Yeah, Haiden, Dangerboy, yeah.
And
Hudson,
he's got his thing going, Hailie,
Yeah.
and you've been married for, 22 years?
Yeah.
And highs and lows, but it's still working, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
What was it, and I guess maybe because a little bit of anger from maybe when your mother left, a whole different guy.
Yeah, for sure. Back then it was.
And why so negative?
Like I said, the negativity came from, like I said, a broken home, and I didn't know that. I just thought that was normal, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to deal with this, and I just didn't think I didn't even know what love was. Like when I was younger, it was weird. I didn't have real strong bond with anyone, even my brothers and sisters. Like we just didn't have this super tight bond, and I think that was from not having a father-mother relationship that was loving and showing us that bond. Right. So I grew up resentful and angry, and that carried into me I was mad I didn't make it in motocross. I thought I was good enough, and I thought I should have had a factory ride. And there was that last year that I said, you know what? F you to the industry. I was pissed, and I thought I should have got that factory Suzuki ride that was open that year. I didn't get it, so that's when I went to Moto Triple X. It was No Effects and strung out the punk bands that gave me enough money to go race. And that year, I kind of just burned my career basically. Just like went out there and we were just going crazy, getting attention, but we're not breaking all the rules. And that's where it kind of started snowballing. And then I went to X Games, and I was like, okay, Travis Pastrana is a good guy. I'm gonna be the bad guy, and we're gonna have spikes and heavy metal, and we're going to be the Metal Mulisha, and we had our little crew of guys, and it just snowballed, and people gravitated towards it.
What made you think of the theater of that? Because, again, that's almost like a pro wrestling scenario.
Yeah.
He's going to be the good guy, you're going to be the bad guy, you coming out with the spikes.
Yeah, and that's what, I used to watch WWF a lot back when I was younger, and I used to dig it, and I used to watch all the characters, and I was way into it, but I think it was just having enough sense to go, okay, you're going to have cameras in front of you. How are you going to get the maximum amount of exposure? And Travis was already the good guy. He was already that
good guy, the squeaky clean good guy.
Yeah, and that was taken. So, and we really were the rebel guys, right? I had been a perfect dude racing motocross, never really drank beer, never partied, so wanted to win so bad. I trained every day, and then I went to freestyle motocross, and I was angry about it, not making it in motocross, started making some money, and we were partying, dude. We were going rebel dudes on dirt bikes, all in black leather jackets. We were bar fights, and we were like basically living it up every night, and not being nice to no one, and then basically it was kind of real. For a little bit of it was real, okay. Like I missed a few events going to jail, you know what I'm saying? Like, but at the end of the day, yes, we played it up on TV too, and it was theatrics of TV, and we wanted the cameras on us. We didn't want them on anyone else. So that was our really way of grasping.
What'd you go to jail for?
Bar fights, yeah. And we were, there was a phase we went through of drinking there for a while, and we got sponsored by Jägermeister.
Oh.
And that was the downfall of the militia for like 2 years. It was very bad. Like, that was not good.
Hey, man, do you own or rent your home? Sure you do. And I bet it can be hard work. You know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com. So you guys are running roughshod. You're having fun. You're doing all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Jägermeister's flowing. How other than that, I think it kind of explains the lifestyle. Yeah. Because, again, I'm not drawing a parallel to pro wrestling. I'm just saying there's a lot of similarities just as far as stuff along the way. How wild was the scene? Did you ever get out of control?
Yeah, I'd say in America, there was, and I still have laws and rules and all that. I'd say it's, in America, we had, I had a moment there at, it was at X Games, Summer X Games, and I think it was, it was back east. Trying to think. It was an event in the Midwest, and I had basically out partying this at a party night before. We're all wrestling and each other drunk, drinking and fighting. And the next thing you know, I got in a wrestling match with a guy, and it ended up being an undercover cop. It was Cleveland. That's right, Cleveland. And they threw me in jail for the night. And I'm like, dude, it was kind of lame because I'm like, dude, I didn't know I didn't know. Yeah. And then next thing you know, he's like, oh, you're arrested. I'm like, dude, I didn't know he's like, so he cuffs me and I'm like, puts me in jail, and I missed the whole event. And everyone's like waiting for me to compete, and I'm like in the local jail. It was definitely a life learning lesson. It was just guys being dumb, and and no one got hurt. But at the end of the day, I was like, man, that was dumb. And I look back at those things, and I'm like, man, bad decisions and wrong place, wrong time. But anyway, it was mainly when you go overseas. I feel like we traveled to so many countries, and there were so many different places that they saw us as this, like, almost like this status when you come into town. Like, they've, never seen you before. They watch you on the videos. You turn into this kind of, like, rock star status, and you can kind of do whatever you want and go. And we were like, it got crazy overseas, dude. Like, pretty much as, like, the things you see, like, Guns N' Roses, the Motley Crue, dude. It was
don't need to go into specifics because I know the family's going to be listening, but I've been to a few similar situations.
I'm sure.
So when did you guys, because as I was telling you before we started rolling the sound here, I've always been a fan of the Metal Mulisha brand just because I'm big into skulls, just love the artwork. It's cool stuff to me. So when did you hook up or become friends with or acquaintances with Larry Linkogel?
Yeah, so
how are you guys now?
Yeah, true. I mean, that is a big part of my life, as a relationship I've had. We met at a local motocross track, Paris Raceway, I think it was, back in the it was the 90s, and it was kind of where I was almost on my outs of motocross, was kind of on my way out, where I realized I wasn't going to get a ride. He was already over everyone. Later down the road, I figured out he came from a family that they were well off, so he really he was okay. He could be the rebel guy, and I'm saying, like, for me, I still had to figure out how I was going to pay the bills. But I was kind of intrigued by his attitude, and because I was angry at the time, we kind of clicked, and he had a big riding facility at his house, and so I was able to go there and ride my dirt bike, and was able to do freestyle there, supercross there. So he had some cool things for us to do there, and which I didn't have access to that, and. So we became friends, and we started the brand, the Metal Mulisha brand, and I think 99 was the year we filed for the LLC, and we started slinging shirts out of the garage, spray painting T-shirts, and and the brand started growing, and then X Games hit, and then it started blowing up, and every kid wanted a Mulisha hat and shirt, and we're like, well, how are we going to do that? And so we ended up trying to sell out of a shop, and we were just horrible. Like, we were messing up so bad. But they came to a point where I started making millions of dollars, and we're like, dude, we're onto something here, and someone's got to take this brand and do it right. And that's when we licensed it to La Jolla. They ran O'Neill Surf and some other brands, and they took it, and that's when it took off and blew up. And that's when it allowed us, it gave us income, and it allowed us to do, sponsor other riders, help young kids coming up, build jump parks, give back to the sport. That was a big part of it, and Larry and I we're business partners, and we definitely had our ups and downs. We had our moments where we just hate each other because we didn't see eye to eye. Which is, now as we got older, and a lot of people think we sold the brand. Unfortunately, there just came a point where the trends go up and down, and the trends went down, and the flat-billed hats and black socks and black Dickies and all that stuff went out of style at some point, right? Some guys still rock it. Some dudes are still living it, right? But hey, to think we started a trend, like, there's been trends every decade. There trends come in and go, and I think we started a trend. We started a movement of that whole look, the 909 look they call it. But even though, and now we can laugh back at it, but then it was serious. Everyone ran it. It was a big movement, and I thought that was cool to be a part of that. But yeah, me and Larry are still business partners. We still own the Mulisha. I just put my focus on my family for a long time, and now I'm trying to get back to kind of keep the brand alive because I think it's got heritage. There was a point where I got offered millions of dollars to sell my portion of it, and I said, you know what? it's just been a piece of me. It's tattooed all over me. And I said, I'm just going to hang on to it, even though I kick myself at times, right? Thinking I could have this much more in the bank, or my kids could be doing this, or I could be retired. But hey, I look at it as a piece of history for me. I didn't want it to get in someone else's hands and they tell a story the wrong way and all of a sudden portray the militia to be something it's not. So I just said, you know what, we're hanging on to it. And if it goes down and doesn't make any money ever again, I don't care, because it is not about the clothing sales. It was always about a group. It was always about a rebel group of guys, and it was always about this movement of action sports. And so the clothing was just a bonus. That was just, hey, I'm a rider, and I'm repping militia. So yeah, right now I am trying to get it back, just so the T-shirts, hoodies, hats are selling good enough just to keep the brand alive as far as the clothing brand. So we're doing that now on metalmulisha.com. It still sells. It's still doing fine. It still does good. I just haven't put my heart and soul into it because I don't have the time. I'm just busy with my kids, but it's still there.
I read Larry Lynn Kogel's book a couple of years ago, and my memory is notoriously bad. Everybody knows that. But he really got in a bad place personally for a long time. But now I understand he's back into fitness. I know he had an accident with a helicopter blade or whatever. But, so he's pretty cool right now, right?
Yeah, he's fine.
Seemingly?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has a son. He just got remarried. I'm not sure, but I think he married the actress from Chicago Fire. I don't know. I don't know it for a fact, but I know he got remarried. And we talk probably once a week now, about business and this, that. I think we're on good terms, because we're family guys. We're too old to be mad anymore. We're too old to be arguing, So anyway, I have a respect for him for being a part of the militia and being through those eras. He went through a gnarly phase in his life for sure, way deeper than I don't know. He got deep, and that for me, I always had to keep moving as an athlete. I had to keep making money, because I felt like if I ever got too far down that dark path of drugs and that lifestyle, I don't know who would pay my bills. So I always had that problem of hey, I that good problem of I can't ever get too deep on that, So anyway, he definitely had some moments, dark times, but now now he seems to be doing fine, and he pulled out of it, so it's good.
So what was the story? Because you guys are starting to ride and say, hey, man, we got to call ourselves something.
Yep.
Okay, let's call it the Metal Mulisha. Here's my question that wasn't answered in Larry's book that I read a couple of years ago. Yeah. Did you guys misspell militia on purpose, or was it the perfect accidental misspelling?
I honestly think about it, and I think it was probably trying to spell it right. Someone was trying to spell it right, and it probably just ended up spelling it wrong. And
phonetically, right, but M-U-L-I-S-H-A.
Yeah, M-U-L, yeah.
And not M-I-L-I-T-I-A. That wouldn't have been as cool.
No. I think it was probably just an accident, to tell you the truth. Who knows? End of the day, now that I've been studying marketing and branding, you look at the world today, every good trademark's taken, right? Every word that's spelt the right way, that has something to do with a brand or it's trademarked. Now you notice all these brands coming out that are spelt wrong. Right? But are they really spelt wrong, right? This vocabulary is changing these days. And so all these new brands are coming out, are so unique, and I think we were ahead of our time, right? Militia, it was spelt wrong. What was cool is there was never any trademark infringement because it was spelt wrong. If you spelt it militia wrong, you were definitely infringing our trademark. That was what's turned out to be a blessing in disguise.
Hiring is a challenge, but there's one place you can go where hiring is simple, fast, and smart. A place where growing businesses connect to qualified candidates. That place is ZipRecruiter.com/Steve. ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards, but they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invite them to apply to your job. As applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one and spotlights the top candidates so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter find a quality candidate through the site within the first day. Just for listeners of the Steve Austin Show, you can try ZipRecruiter for free when you head over to ZipRecruiter.com/Steve. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/Steve to find the ideal candidates for the job. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Hey, man, you're a religious person now, right?
Yep.
But were you always?
No.
Now, did you find religion, I know you've told this story a million times, but that bad crash, was it at Bam Margera's place?
Mm-hmm.
When you were trying to, dude, you land on your handlebars. I've seen them wreck a few times.
Yeah.
You lived through it and lost a couple body parts.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when you found God?
Yeah, so, I grew up in religion. I grew up, my dad was Catholic and our family was Catholic, and it was kind of weird because the vibe was if you weren't Catholic, it was a problem, and I always felt that was kind of weird about religion. So it kind of made me push away. We'd go to church on Sundays. We'd sit in the pew, and I'm just be honest, it was so boring. Like I would sit in the Catholic church pews, and I'd be like, couldn't wait to get out of there, And unfortunately, I just don't. Unfortunately that was just my upbringing, and so I pulled away from religion. As I started doing freestyle motocross, started racing. Racing's on Sundays, so quit going to church. Really didn't have a true, genuine love for going to church, and so I went to California, and wasn't into it. I wasn't into really religion. And then I went to California. I'd met my girlfriend, became my wife. Her family was Christian, and at first I was kind of like, oh no, this is kind of like you go to church, they're all singing and yelling, and I always was kind of taught like that was where the weirdos went, kind of to be honest, I was, and but I kind of was in there and it's so theatrical, and then I went and I was like, I don't know. And then I always kind of was in or out of it, kind of wanted to be a part of it, kind of didn't. And then I went to, I had a lot of bad crashes. And it was a moment where I went to do Viva La Bam for MTV. I did a backflip in the wind, which I didn't want to do. The TV was like, hey, we got to get the shot. Let's go. And I was like, it's really windy. I don't know. And they said, well, let's do it. I thought you could do it. So I'm like, of course. I take the challenge. I flip in the wind, really, really windy. Under-rotate the flip, handlebar pushes in my stomach really hard. I under-rotate it, and the end of the bar didn't stab me. It was just the blunt force of the way the bars curve up by the bar pad hit me under the ribs, and it shattered my kidney and spleen, and I went to the ground. I felt like something I never felt before. My stomach was on fire. It felt like I got shot with a shotgun in my stomach, and it wouldn't go away. Usually it goes away after a few minutes, and you can tough it out, but it was getting worse, and that's when I started getting scared. No medics on the scene, and I started turning yellow. My skin, my stomach was enlarging by the second, and I was like, please get an ambulance, and they finally got an ambulance there. It was almost a half hour to 45 minutes. I don't know how I made it because I ended up tearing my my kidney off my artery, and I went to the hospital, emergency surgery, exploratory. They pull all my organs out, lay one after another to see what's wrong. But before I went into surgery, the doctor leaned over me, and I just remember it was an Indian doctor, and I just remember looking at him, and he says, I don't know what's wrong. We're going to go in. We're going to do everything we can. He says, I'm going to do everything I can. In which he was dead serious. He was straightforward, like, hey, I don't know if you're going to make it, basically. And he said, because my blood pressure was very, very faint. I had barely had a pulse. And on the way in, I just remember I was chewing my mouth, chewing my tongue, chewing my lips, trying to stay awake because I wanted to fall asleep. And because I didn't have any blood pressure, and I just knew, I was like, dude, am I going to die? Really right now over a dirt bike crash? And I started thinking about my wife, my daughter, my family, my funeral. And then I just remember the doctor leaning over me saying, hey, is there anything you want to tell your family? And that's when I was like, whoa. I go, this is crazy. I'm going to die, And I said, tell them I love them. I just tell my family I love them. And I just remember thinking, and at that point I said, please, God, if you're real, I've been to church. I've been there. I've been in and out. I go, please, God, if you're real, I'm done. I'm done being bad. I'm giving my heart to Christ, and I'm not going to turn back, and I'm going to just want to live. I just want to live. And it's unfortunate. That's what it took for me to see the importance of God in my religion. But it was a moment of am I going to live or die? And it took that moment for me to go, yeah, I don't want to die, and I want to live, and I want to live a better life, and I want to, and if I was gonna die, I want to go to heaven. I don't want to take that risk, that risk of okay, if it's real or if it's not. Okay, so you that moment comes, you're like, I'm either gonna black out and it's over, or I'm gonna end up somewhere that the Bible spoke about, and I'm going to be in massive regret and never be able to turn back. So what is your loss really? You know what I'm saying? Like when I woke up, I was like, thank God. I woke up out of surgery, tubes everywhere. And my family was there next to me. They were in California. They flew out to the East Coast. That's how long I was in surgery, 12 hours. And they said, okay, you lost your kidney, you exploded off your artery. We don't know how you survived. Your artery was pumping all your blood out. It's not normal to live for an hour with your artery severed. And they said, we had a piece of your kidney was lodged into your artery. You said, there's something, you're very, very lucky that you survived this. And I just remember like, all right, I made that commitment. And I went through the hospital for many weeks in the hospital, ended up flying home. And I just remember getting home, and my friends were calling, and the militia, all this, that. I lived right in the middle of it, freestyle park at my house at that time. And I'm like, man, I made this commitment, and I went to church, and I did. I gave my life to Christ, and I said, okay, I'm going to be a born-again Christian. Whatever that means, however that walk is going to happen, I'm doing it, and I did it. But, life happens, right? And I started having to surround myself with people that could help me with that walk, and mainly family. I just had to pull the family in closer and start pushing out people that didn't want to be a part of that. Unfortunately, it sounds bad, but when you first get into that walk, you need to surround yourself with the people that are walking in the same direction you are. And there will come a point where, okay, I've been in the walk long enough. It never gets easy. I had things pull me from all directions to stop and go away from that, but there came a point where you become strong enough in it that you see a life-changing experiences, and you see your family growing from it, that you're like, you know what? Okay, now I can start pulling in people that are not Christian and maybe helping them, or maybe helping them with their walk, or, and that happened. That's when Jeremy Lusk, was one of our riders that was a rebel dude, and he ended up giving his life to Christ through, which was after my best friend Ronnie Feist, who was another rebel dude. I could go down the list of the gnarly bad things he's done, just like me, and walked him into church, got him his first Bible. Like, I would have never done that when I was younger, and it changed his life. He went from this dude who did a complete 180, and he's a preacher now. I never would have. No one had ever thought that, right? But he lives a good life. He has a wife he's in love with. They treat each other good. Like, he used to treat girls so bad. Like, we all did. Like, that was our deal. Like, and then until we learned to respect and have respect for others and all the things through the Bible. And, and I never was a big Bible thumper. I never walk around and said, oh, this is what you need to do. I just figured live by example, and that was the best way to do it. And I feel like that helped me. I feel like that has what's helped me be where I am today. Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm nowhere near. I mess up all the time. I still sin. I still I mess. A lot of the times I'm a mess. I still cuss at times. I still like things that are not right. But you know what? Every day I'm trying to get down that better path, and that's what it says. It's about you're not perfect, right? None of us are, but he is, and that was the whole thing that I had to learn, and it's helped raise my kids in the right atmosphere, and helped keep my marriage together. I'll be honest, like, me and my wife had some very bad days, like most marriages, and I'm scared to say it. I've had many moments where we're like, dude, we're getting divorced, or I don't want to be with you, don't want to be with me, and then I said, you know what, with that bond of like, hey, we got married, became one, and Christianity, going to church on the weekends helped build a foundation that we're like, okay, there's more than us. It's not just about us anymore. I felt like when I started talking about divorce, or started talking about, I'm like, man, I could go party, I could go do this, I could go do that. Then I thought about it, I'm like, dude, really? Like you've already done all that. Like, and really, your satisfaction in me, no bigger satisfaction right now is coming from seeing my kids succeed. And so I'm like, when I see my friends who don't want to have kids, they don't want to get married, I'm like, man, you're missing it, dude. Like, when you're younger, cool, whatever. Like, but there comes a point where you're like, man, life is turns into importance of family, and it's meant to be that. I feel it's meant to be that bond, and it's meant to have kids. You're meant to have those relationships, and I don't know. It's just what I've learned over the years.
Hey, man, when I was watching some of the videos from you guys on YouTube, and a lot of guys that you just named, along with Mad Mike Jones, Twitch, Carrie Hart, Larry, Mickey Diamond, I got a big list here. I don't need to go down it. Man, a bunch of dudes hanging out in deserts, cameras rolling. Yep. lot of testosterone, probably some alcohol down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, what a lifestyle. And all the crashes and the main crash that we just got finished talking about. Dude, what is the mindset, man, when you just say, hey, man, I'm going to take off and go do this, but ain't nobody ever done it before, and you guys just out in the desert, they ain't got no medical people out there.
Yeah, it's scary.
And it's that's a different mindset.
Yeah, it is. And, you like to think it's calculated risk, You like to think that you're good enough to land those jumps and you have enough skill set. But there's so many times and so many jumps you just line up and you don't know how it's going to end, And I look back at it now as I'm older. I'm like, man, I can't believe you have. But it's a mindset that you get in that I think it's, probably the same mindset, you could compare to, probably other sports, or compare to, like, say you get in the ring and there's a crowd's cheering and you just get a different energy, right?
Right.
There's a different mindset and energy, and I always thought, why are we the guys here and there's there's a big crowd of people, why are we the ones down here and there's the crowds watching us, I always used to think that, but it's a different mindset you have, and you like to think it's because you're so skilled and you're going to be able to pull off every trick or every stunt, but it doesn't. But I just think you're willing to take the risk. You're willing to get hurt, and you're willing to deal with the consequences. And I think that was the difference between us and other riders. And I think, yes, there came a point where I'm like, man, there's no ambulance here. And as I got older, I'm like, I'm not going to take that risk today because there's no ambulance. Or we'd go to different countries, and I'd look at the hospitals. I'd be like, man, this hospital, like when, let's say Jeremy Luss, he was in a country, third world country, Costa Rica, and he went to a hospital. I wasn't there when that injury happened, but he hit his head and ended up having brain swelling, and I went to a hospital that was like there. When I went down there to see him, that right when it happened, we flew down there and we went into this hospital. There's holes in the walls and blood everywhere, and I was like, crazy. I'm like, man, this is just not like anything you deal with in America. So that made me look at going to countries going, okay, how good is their medical? How much risk do I really want to take in this country? And then I started saying no to certain events. I'd say, no, I ain't going to that country. It's not worth it to me. I'm going to end up getting hurt and going to a hospital, and who knows what's going to happen. Anyway, that's how I started, as I got older, started saying no. I started trying to be wiser, but it's a different mindset.
After doing all the S games and having that really bad crash, when did you decide, hey, it's time to back this thing down and maybe, here's the opportunity to get into four wheels? Because I got a chance to talk with Jeremy McGrath from the Kawasaki relationship a few times, and he kind of knew when it was his time to segue out. Was that the end for you, or when did you know, hey, it's time to do something else?
Yeah, it was right around the end of the probably it was 07, 08 when I started going, man, I'm going to X Games. I'm kind of scared to do the big tricks now. Kind of when I was at X Games, and that I had my last big hurrah when I did the first 360 at Summer X Games, won the gold medal, did it over Pastrana. There's a big hype that weekend that he was going to do this new trick. I saw him do it on the internet, and I pulled it before he did, so I got to claim it. And then anyway, that was probably my highlight. That was the biggest, highest moment of my freestyle career. And then that's when I went to Winter X a few months later, tried the 360, crashed, 100-foot ice jump, didn't rotate, threw the bike in the air, went 4 stories down to flat ice, shattered my hip in 10 spots, both wrists, internal bleeding. That was the big one I had that kind of go, okay, this is it. This is kind of your last hurrah. The road started going downhill from there. And then when Pastrana came to Summer X Games, and I can't remember what year it was, but I just remember watching him. He says, I'm going to do a double backflip. I'm like, no way, dude. This is going to be this is going to be gnarly. So I look at the ramp straight up, huge. And I remember talking to him in the back room in the cafeteria, and I'm like, dude, you really, have you done a double backflip? He's like, yeah, at home, we do it in the foam. Or he's like, I got it. I got this. And I was looking at his mom. His mom was in tears, And I'm like, dude, this guy's nuts. Right then I said,
this is you telling him.
Yeah. And I go, I'm out. I'm not doing that. And at that point, I go, dude, I'm not doing a double backflip. That was kind of my career moment where I'm like, the sport has gone to another level that I'm not willing to go to. 10 years ago, yeah, okay. What I wish would have happened, I don't know if I really do, but at the end of the day, foam pits came about. I learned to backflip before foam pit. The airbags that have come into the sport now that Travis Pastrana has brought to his Nitro Circus tour, big applause to Travis. He employs so many riders. He gives back to the sport, and he has the safety of an airbag on the landing, and he's made it normal to where fans are okay with watching riders land on an airbag. Good, because, hey, that's safer. What I'm saying is if I had that back in the day when I didn't care if I got hurt, when I wanted to be the man, if they had airbags back then, dang, I don't know. I just couldn't imagine where the sport would have gone. But it came later, and I'm glad the sport is elevated to that, and I think it's super important. But freestyle motocross, I look at, I was just on my way here I went to Carl's Jr., and there's a freestyle motocross picture on the wall. And I'm like, it's so cool we started that movement, It's just cool.
It's cool to be sitting there and talking to one of the guys that started it. How is it that most of you guys ended up in Temecula? I mean, I know there's guys from all over the place, but Temecula just always seems to come to mind.
Yeah, I never planned on living in Temecula. I didn't even know much about it when I came to California. Like, I lived in San Bernardino when I first came out here. I ended up in Canyon Lake, which was kind of the party hotbed for moto. It's when McGrath lived on the lake, and all the moto guys, like, it turned into Party Central at Canyon Lake. That was, like, right by Lake Elsinore. And then there came a point where I was like, man, I can't live this lifestyle every day. People are stopping by my house every day with, like, a case of beer. Like, hey, dude. And I'm like, finally, I'm like, I cannot do this anymore. And so I moved to Temecula, that's where Larry lived. He had property there. I went down there many years ago to ride, and the dirt was really good. And when you're a moto guy, you buy a house based upon the dirt. You don't buy it upon, like, the area. Like, you're like, how good is the dirt? If the dirt's rocky and dry, and you don't want it. Like, basically, you showing if it's sandy and soft, good soil, those are the houses you want to buy because you can build awesome tracks. And that's what I did in Temecula. I bought this piece of valley property, is sandy, trees, and it was just awesome for moto, and we built our freestyle park there. And that's why I moved to Temecula, And then Temecula blew up. It's, like, huge. Like, it's growing so fast right now that I'm like, do I really want to stay in Temecula? Because it's turned into a city now. But I ended up building a house in Morganton, North Carolina, because I know we're going to end up there for Hailie's Racing, NASCAR Central. But I'm like, I don't want to be on Lake Norman because that's kind of like the lake's pretty green and dirty. Lake James is beautiful lake, crystal blue, real country town. My wife hates it because there's only a Walmart in town. But for me, I'm like, it's such a cool getaway. Nautique gave us a boat, sits in the water. We go out there. The huge motocross facility is why we moved there. My buddy, one of our best friends, really, really good family that my son races against. They own a motocross facility there. And it works out good. But my point is, back to a place where there's not a lot of people, but I have to be in Southern California to still do my business. This is where it's at for me. This is where I make money, how I make a living. So until I figure out a way to make a living in NASCAR, I'm still going to be in Southern California.
How long have you been in Temecula?
Temecula since I'd say 99 probably. I'd say, yeah.
So right now, the place in North Carolina is a getaway?
Yeah, it is the getaway, but it is for sure.
Could you ever pull the plug on Cali? Because everybody tells me it's just like the Eagle Song Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave.
Yeah. I think right now, if you go down the list of brands that I have and sponsors we have, they're all Southern California. I love nothing beats Southern California in the winter for moto. Like, it's the best. I love it. I love that when it rains and you wake up in the morning and that smell of the wet dirt and the grass, and I can't beat it. I'm addicted to it. Like, I would love it. I love getting on a dirt bike. I love going riding, whether it's with my kids or even by myself. It's my stress reliever. Some days I'll be so stressed and so angry just over everything business and my list. I can't get my list done, and I just load up my dirt bike and I go to the track, or I go out in the field and I ride my dirt bike, and I will honestly be in 100% different mindset when I get home. I don't know what it does. It's probably like going to the gym or, punching a heavy bag. I don't know, but it definitely is therapy for me. So I think I really just love Southern California for the winters, and business is good there until I find a business that's going to do just as good in the East Coast. I don't think I'll leave. I think we're always going to be a part of Southern California,
And last but not least, because I know you got a busy schedule, health-wise, with all of the injuries that you've had and watching so many of your buddies just get smoked, just dude walking off or your arm hanging and stuff like that. With all the repairs that you've got going on, I always talk to guys from my line of work, and hey man, how you doing after so many years?
Yeah.
How are you? Are you on a 1 to 10? Because I know you're an avid trainer. You take your fitness very seriously now, and maybe now for some years. Back in the day, maybe not so much. It was that youth and the adrenaline and the testosterone. Yeah. How are you on a 1 to 10 as far as 1 being very little pain and a 10 being a lot?
I would say probably somewhere between a 5 and a 6 or 7. I've had my bad days. I have my good days too. I have days where it's a 2 or 3, I definitely have to say, but I wake up in the morning, I'm pretty stiff and it broke a lot of bones. I got most of the metal taken out of me, which I had at one point. I could barely walk. I could barely move my arm. I go, that's it. I went in, I did a lot of studying on health and having metal in your body. I had them remove the plates out of my body. It was a big surgery. My body's healed up really well. I still have a rod in my humerus, which I have to get out, but it's been in there so long, the bone's grown over the bolts. But I have to get that out because my arm's still hurts. Other than that, like my hip that I shattered, my shoulder, all feels pretty good. But like I said, I have my moments. I have my moments where for a few years there, I would wake up every morning really stiff, like my back hurts. I got really into jiu-jitsu for a while because I just felt like that really helped me. That was really a stress reliever, and it really was an art I wanted to learn. But it beat me up, and then that's when I've never been a big cannabis guy. I had buddies that grew up smoking weed. That just never was my thing. I had a buddy who owns a bunch of cannabis fields and plants, whatever, and dispensaries. He gave me some CBD, and he said, hey, try this. And I ain't trying to sell it, and I'm just trying to say, hey, I tried it. It was a non-THC, and I was like, oh, no, is it going to get me high? And all the things that people worry about. And it didn't. I just woke up in the morning and I felt better. I felt like, okay, today I don't need to take Excedrin today. I don't need to take Advil today. I can't take Advil because I'm kidding. But I take Tylenol or aspirin. And I said, you know what? I started taking less of that. So I got to the point where I started taking less aspirin and stuff. And it really did help me. I got to the point where I'm like, oh, I woke up in the morning, I'm feeling pretty good. I don't have that edge of pain. And so I feel like, if anything, that's been one of the biggest changes in my life, is getting introduced to that. I think that's been a big part of it. And like my buddy, was like, okay, I'm a believer. And I'm like, I do want to get this out to my friends. So my buddy gave me a bunch of samples I've been getting to my friends. And we ended up, I never found a product I liked. It all tastes like crap. And I'm like, why does it taste so bad? And then the full spectrums, they have more of a weed taste. But the kind that's just straight CBD with THC shouldn't. Because it's an isolate. It's like a powder in an oil. So anyway, I told my buddy, I'm like, dude, I want to put out just my own stuff that tastes good, that has no THC. So he's okay, and that was his business. So I took months and created flavors that taste, I think, really good. You don't have to gag them down. And we came out with a brand called Code RD. It's a CBD brand. And I spent most of the time on the formulation and getting it right. And like, it's still to this point, like, product's just going to start selling probably in the next month or two. But it's super new. But I felt like it was something I wanted to get out to people to share. And the people I've given it to are all like, dude, they're addicted to it now. They're like, dude, I need to, can you send me more? I feel way better. And I'm like, dude, it's all natural. It's healthy. Like you don't get addicted to it. You just get addicted to not being in pain.
Right.
Pain sucks. I hate it. That's the worst part about getting old. I hate being in pain. It ruins your day, ruins your attitude, makes you treat people like shit because you basically just don't feel good. And I don't think life should be like that. If you can get out of it, then I just think, it's the one thing to be a tough guy and be like, oh, I can just tough through it. There comes a point where you just want to feel good. You just want to feel normal,
Dude, when you're on that 4, 5, 6 or level 7, whatever, it's just constant. It does change your attitude, and not for the better.
Yeah.
Hey, on an ending note, where can people find you, whether social media, your website, YouTube channel, and everything that's going on with Brian Deegan and the Deegan family?
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot of channels out there and social media, but basically it's just, if you look up Brian Deegan, that's my Instagram, Facebook, basically the majors. The Deegans is the name of our YouTube channel. And if you really want to know who we are and keep up on what we're doing daily, the Deegans is kind of like a documentary that like a live documentary of our life. Like every day we're putting out videos that are very current of what we're doing throughout our life. If you want to keep up with us, that's a great way. Or like I said, my social media is just my name, Brian Deegan, or you follow my kids, Hailie Deegan, Haiden Deegan, Hudson Deegan. It's Dangerboy is Hayden's, and he's got his whole own story. We got to get him on sometime.
Good marketing.
Yeah, right. It's about building brands, right? That's what I learned in life. You got to build a brand, anyway. I've been very fortunate in life, though, to be able to build brands and build business around hanging out with my family. That's been my goal. Yes, I could probably make more money if I went down, say, a corporate road of trying to build just one thing and be at work every day. But I feel like I've been able to follow my family and stay involved with them because at the end of the day, like we say, when that near-death experience that I've had a few times. I had one where a helicopter hit me and the blade hit my arm and the next blade hit my helmet, and but it just missed my neck. So I've had a few close calls where I thought about life, and I said, okay, when I'm in my dying days or when they're burying me, who's gonna be there? And who's gonna be there is my family. That's who's gonna that's the facts. And, you're gonna have, for sure, your family's gonna be there, and so like if I can spend more time with my family, then I feel like I'm winning. I feel like that's for me success, to me, and I get a lot of people like, oh, my kids don't want to hang out with me, or my kids don't want to listen to me, or, and I say, you know what, to me, that's not the case. Like my kids, I respect them. They respect me, and I give them goals to shoot for. There's days I have to be disciplined. I have to be hard on them. It sucks. It hurts me. Like I don't want to discipline my kids, but you have to because you're punishing them long term if you don't. So I feel like these are things that I'm learning through life. And like I said, I feel successful because I get to hang out with my family. And yes, we make a living off it because we build brands around it. So the podcast, which, like I said, it basically turned into something that I thought is much cooler than what I thought it was going to be. I thought, okay, this is, it opened a door for me to have good conversations with good people. And I think it's interesting. So if you guys log on to The Deegans, it's PodcastOne. Apple Podcasts is now on Spotify, which is actually pretty cool because we got bugged about that for a long time. And I said, I don't run that side of the business, but it is good now. So anyway, check it out. Our podcast is doing really well. And I say that not just on numbers, but it's doing well because people are getting something out of it. Like I try to basically help people with certain scenarios of their life through the podcast, and I think it's succeeding. I think it's doing what I want it to do. And I'm always open for suggestions if you want to leave in my comments on my social media anywhere. Like you can go on I check my Instagram obviously every day. If you went on there and leave comments like, hey, I'm really interested in this subject, or I'd like to know about this. If you could maybe answer this question, I think we'll start doing that more. So, I'm accessible, and I think that's cool. So, if I could help anyone in any way, I'm open to do it.
And that's the bottom line, because Brian Deegan said so. Thanks for coming by, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast right off in the sunset. Before I do that, I want to thank my guest, Brian Deegan, for rolling over here all the way to Marina Del Rey, California, to the Broken Skull studio to sit here and shoot the breeze and talk about the past, talk about some of the things that they've been up to and the future, or where they're hoping to go. Great talking to Brian. That whole family is busy in the motorsports world and all kind of endeavors. So continued success. Brian, good luck with your podcast. If you ever need any 411 from me, I'm just a phone call away. Be happy to help a brother out. Check out Brian's podcast on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to rate and review the Steve Austin Show on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends to check us out. If you want to reach me here on the podcast, send an email to questions@steveaustonshow.com. Hey, folks, don't forget to tune in next week to the Steve Austin Show. This show will drop Tuesday. Philadelphia Eagles right tackle, one of the best tackles in all of the NFL, Lane Johnson, stops by the Broken Skull studio, and we're going to talk about football, chop it up, and have a good time telling stories. Lane Johnson of the Philadelphia Eagles right here next week. Do not miss it. Hey, man, big shout out, man. I'm so excited to be in 17 states with Broken Skull IPA, the best IPA in the United States of America. Go to ElSegundoBrewing.com. Click on Broken Skull IPA. It will take you to the interactive map where you can find Broken Skull IPA and other El Segundo Brewing beers. And these are the finest beers in the United States of America, and that's the bottom line. In California, you can find Broken Skull IPA at Whole Foods and Total Wines. Check it out. We're coming your way. Texas, we will be in Texas in March. Stay tuned, because I can't wait for Broken Skull IPA to get to Texas. We got the King of Attitude shirts, Broken Skull Ranch apparel, still over there on ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin. And if you're looking for a badass pocket knife, I got two. Collaboration with Cold Steel, the Broken Skull knife and the Working Man's knife. Check them out at my Amazon store. Amazon's got the best price on both knives. Just go to Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin. I would like to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially Geico, ZipRecruiter, Scott's, Health IQ, and Bet Online. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. If you need more info, check out the show description to this episode for details. Folks, I cannot wait to get back to the Broken Skull Ranch in Nevada to get on my Kawasaki and blaze through the mountains. Until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Have you checked out Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson yet? If not, you got to head over to their show page and listen to some episodes. Mike pours his soul into conversations with fascinating minds, celebrities, and athletes in a studio full of smoke. Kid Dynamite and his cosmic millennial sidekick, Eben Britton, dive deep into the issues impacting us all today. This show will change the way you see the world. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, PodcastOne.com, Apple Podcasts, and many of your favorite podcast listening apps. Have y'all tried to listen to our show on Spotify yet? If not, give it a try. If you have, tell a friend. Send them a link to our show on Spotify. And when you do, be sure to follow our show page. That way, you'll get all new episodes as they come out. You can find them in your library. Download the Spotify app free now. Simply search our show to start listening.